If you're about to pick up Astrologian for the first time and find it a bit confusing, then this video is for you. This guide starts by teaching you how to play Astrologian at level 30 and then explains how to use all of the actions you learned from level 30 to 50 in order. We finish with a combat rotation alongside healing tips and advice for level 50 that encompasses all of the things you learned throughout this guide. Now then, let's begin with your attacking spells. Benefic is your basic attacking spell, and it functions as your filler spell that you use when nothing more important, like healing, takes priority. Incorporating attacking in group combat is a core part of healing in Final Fantasy XIV, so it is better to practice finding time to do so as early as possible. Of course, it is more important to keep your group alive than being too greedy with damage. Combust is your damage over time spell, or DOT for short. You should make sure to keep this active on as many enemies as possible before resorting to Benefic. For healing, let's start with your spell options. Benefic 2 and Helios serve as your single target and area of effect, AoE for short, healing options. Generally, Helios is the better option if more than 2 players need healing, but Benefic 2 is the best option for keeping your tank healthy. Benefic 1 serves as a slightly more MP efficient heal, but this should be entirely avoided in nearly all situations, as the greater potency of Benefic 2 allows you to more quickly get back to doing other things like attacking, which is the better choice. If you are somehow closing in on running out of MP, Benefic 1 is a viable choice for that situation only. Ascend brings a dead player back to life. It is quite expensive and takes a long time to cast, so outside of desperate situations, you should only cast Ascend alongside Swift Cast, a role action that makes your next spell with a cast time instant. This of course means you can only reliably raise someone once per minute. Note that when a player is resurrected, they are completely impervious to damage and effects applied by damage for 5 seconds, unless they do anything other than movement. Using Sprint also removes this effect. Finally, Isuna is a role action that removes a single removable debuff. You can identify a removable debuff by the bluish-white line above the debuff icon. Some debuffs are more important to remove than others. For instance, a slowing effect, whether it is movement or attack speed, is likely to assist your group more than spending that time casting Malefic. Paralyze is especially important to remove, as the random stuns from it can be lethal, or especially problematic for mages, including yourself. Sometimes dots can be removed too, and sometimes they can be dangerous, and other times they are so weak that it isn't really worth the effort of removing them. You can only really tell from the damage the affected player ends up taking, and then keeping it in mind for the future. For general MP recovery, Lucid Dreaming allows you to greatly boost your MP recovery every minute, and I recommend that you use this whenever you are below 8000 MP. If you are actively casting, then most of the value of Lucid Dreaming will still be applied. Lucid Dreaming should absolutely not be kept as a last resort reserve when you are already out of MP. Use it early and often, even if some of the MP it grants ends up going to waste. Now, let's talk about your other ability options. Essential Dignity, on a relatively short cooldown, allows you to heal for a very large amount of HP, which increases the less HP your target has left. This ability maximizes its potency when the target drops to 30% or less HP, so unless it is too dangerous, you should typically let your target drop to this threshold before using Essential Dignity. In most situations, the target of Essential Dignity will be your tank. Remember to use Essential Dignity regularly and don't save it as a panic button, as a huge amount of the value in the ability is in its short cooldown itself. Lightspeed reduces the cast time of all of your spells by 2.5 seconds, making most of them instant. It also reduces the cast time of Ascend to a point where in a desperate situation you could potentially cast Ascend without Swift Cast if you need to. Lightspeed also allows you to keep up with your team while casting spells should you have the need to do that, although applying Combust to each enemy as you run with the tank tends to take up plenty of time. Notably, as Lightspeed only reduces cast time, it does not allow you to fit more spells in the same time frame, so if you aren't going anywhere, then the benefits of Lightspeed are probably not going to be very significant in most situations. Next, let's take a look at Astrologian's card mechanic. For now, you have the abilities Draw, Play and Undraw. To start, don't bother putting Undraw on your hotbars. You will never need it for any reason. Trust me. Now, Draw is an ability that can hold up to 2 charges, and it gains 1 charge every 30 seconds. Whenever you use it, you draw a card and restore 5% of your total MP. The card you draw is randomly chosen among the following 6 cards: the Balance, the Arrow, the Spear, the Bow, the Ewer, and the Spire. All 6 cards are effectively a single target damage buff that you can pass to any party member as you please. However, the first 3 cards double their power on a melee DPS or a tank, and the last 3 cards double their power on a ranged DPS, mage or healer. To actually play a card, you naturally use the aptly named play action. At this level, there isn't a particular benefit to playing your cards in bulk. However, if draw is ready and you don't have a card in hand, always draw so the cooldown can start. I also recommend making a habit of only playing cards when you are in combat, as this will become relevant later on. Note that the color outline of the card in your gauge will be bluish for melee cards and a more pinkish purple for ranged cards. In regards to card playing, I want to briefly talk about weaving. In Final Fantasy XIV, spells incur a 2.5 second time frame where you cannot initiate another spell, regardless of the cast time. Abilities like Essential Dignity, Draw, and Play do not do this, and furthermore are not impeded by this 2.5 second time frame either. However, abilities still cause an animation lock that prevents you from casting anything else for around half a second, and then some. Weaving then is the concept of weaving abilities between spells, notably spells with a cast time of 1.5 or less, which is most of your spells. You can fit 1 ability before the next spell. Instant spells like Combust allow you to fit 2 abilities if necessary. During Lightspeed, you can fit 2 abilities between most spells. This does however mean that outside of Lightspeed or Combust, the typical gameplay involves fitting Draw after one spell and then Play after a later spell, and so not both Draw and Play in the same window. Optimally, Essential Dignity should also be weaved this way, but sometimes damage can sneak up on you and you may need to drop everything you're doing to save the tank. The important part is to get used to weave Draw, Play, and tools like Lightspeed and Lucid Dreaming as you fight. I have 2 shorts adding a bit more detail to this subject if you are interested. Finally, before moving on to new spells and abilities, Repose is a role action you can use to crowd control enemies, and comically, the damage over time of Combust does not break the effect. However, any other damage will break it, so you will probably not need this spell much. Now then, at level 34, you learn the spell Aspected Benefic, which instantly heals your target for a decent amount and then applies a healing over time effect, HOT for short, to the target for 15 seconds. This is by far your strongest healing tool, so if your tank needs healing beyond Essential Dignity, they probably do, then this should be your first option, and you should always apply this if your target doesn't already have the HOT before relying on tools like Benefic 2. Applying Aspected Benefic to the tank before they start pulling is also a good idea, even if the initial healing goes to waste. The healing over time can greatly reduce the amount of healing you need to do later down the line. At level 36, you learn the trait Enhanced Benefic, which gives Benefic 1 a small chance of making your next Benefic 2 a guaranteed critical heal whenever you use Benefic 1. To put it bluntly, this trait is completely irrelevant, and you should still only be using Benefic 1 if you genuinely have no other options. At level 40, you learn the ability Redraw, which allows you to draw a different card than the one you already have, once per draw. At this level, this can mainly be helpful to attempt to fish for example, a melee card if you have no ranged DPS or mages in your group, or a ranged card if you have no melee DPS. This becomes a lot more useful at higher levels. At level 42, you learn the spell Aspected Helios, which is effectively an AoE version of Aspected Benefic, although it has a cast time. If at least 2 players benefit from the full value of Aspected Helios, it is better than all of your other healing options. Additionally, the HOT effects from Aspected Helios and Aspected Benefic stack, so you can use tricks like swift casting Aspected Helios to apply this as an additional heal over time as your tank is pulling, should you feel the need for this extra healing. However, this is not always necessary. At level 44, you learn the role action and ability Surecast. This ability makes you immune to most knockbacks, and also makes you immune to interruption as a result of damage. What this means is that sometimes when you're hit with a particularly powerful attack, your spellcast is completely cancelled. This cannot happen when Surecast is active. At level 45, you learn the spell Gravity, which does damage in an AoE around your target. If at least 2 targets are within range to be struck by Gravity, it is better than Malefic, and if at least 4 targets are within range, it also beats Combust. This can make using Lightspeed while your tank is pulling a lot more lucrative, as it allows you to cast Gravity as you run. Just make sure to apply Combust to targets until you can actually land Gravity on 4 enemies at a time. At level 46, Combust permanently upgrades to Combust 2, increasing its damage. This means that Gravity now is better than Combust 2 when it can hit at least 5 targets, although they are nearly identical in value with 4 targets. At level 48, you learn the role action and ability Rescue. This only works in combat and only if you and your target are both in combat, otherwise you will either be incapable of using it or the game will report that you missed. Rescue will, after about a second delay, drag your target to the location you were in when you cast it. Knockback immunities like Surecast also makes players immune to Rescue. The delay before the action takes effect means that you may need to react early when you need to use it for it to be beneficial at all to your target. Remember that Rescue drags the target, so if there is something dangerous between you, this may also cause problems. At level 50, you learn the ability Synastry, which applies a buff to your target that copies 40% of all the upfront healing from your single target healing spells. This means that it only works with Benefic 1, 2 and Aspected Benefic, and all other healing is ignored. The healing over time from Aspected Benefic is not counted either. Synastry can be used to allow you to heal 2 targets somewhat effectively simultaneously, but in any situation where you would wish to do that, simply using an AoE healing spell tends to be more effective anyway. This means that Synastry serves as a way to boost your single target healing spells upfront healing by 40% by using Synastry on your tank, for example, and then using Benefic 2 on your tank to gain an additional 40% healing. Synastry is considered an extremely niche ability, and it is not unusual if you rarely use it. You also learn the ability Divination, which is simply a raid-wide damage buff, which you should make use of as much as possible. Start fights by, for example, weaving a card play, then a draw, and then Divination, and then simply weave Divination whenever you can. Finally, you learn the ability Astrodyne, and your Arcana gauge, the one with your cards, is expanded with 3 sign slots. Your 6 cards pairwise are given a specific sign, totaling 3 different sign types. There is a melee and ranged card for each sign. When a card is played, the sign is added to the sign slots on your gauge, but only if it is played while in combat. And once you have 3 signs, you can use Astrodyne, which should always be used before you play another card. Astrodyne applies up to 3 effects depending on how many different signs you have when you use it. With 1 sign, it restores 2500 MP over 15 seconds. With 2 signs, it also reduces both the cast time and the recast time of all of your spells by 10% for the same duration. With 3 signs, it also increases all damage and healing done by 5% for the same duration. This of course means that you want to use as many different signs as possible. You can see which sign your current card will grant at the top of the card in your gauge. An important detail about the Redraw ability is that it is guaranteed to draw a card with a different sign to the one on the card you have, which means that by making use of Redraw, you are guaranteed to get at least 2 different signs, and the probability of getting 3 different signs is astronomically high. The important part is that you should always play the cards you are given, even if the Redraw doesn't land the specific sign you want, and Astrodyne should be used whenever you can, as some bonuses every 90 seconds is always better than maybe all the bonuses every 120 seconds, or 150 seconds, or later. Now, to round off, let's cover an actual boss fight opener example and rotation, followed by some healing advice. Remember, keeping your party alive is always more important than pushing damage, but being efficient with your time also matters. Make sure to draw your first card as quickly as you can. Hopefully you will have 2 ready cards to draw again before the fight begins. You can use Aspected Helios and Benefic to preemptively apply HOTS to your party as needed. Note that due to the randomness of card plays, there are some random elements in the opener itself. As the tank runs up to the boss, cast Malefic and weave Lightspeed. Then cast Combust and weave 2 card play related actions. Then cast Malefic, followed by 2 card play actions, another Malefic, and then weave Divination alongside 1 more card action. After that, continue using Malefic while using card actions until you can use Astrodyne, and then weave Astrodyne when you can. After that, keep up Combust, and you can choose to play the cards, Astrodyne and Divination as you get them, or you can use them in bursts. The card burst allows you to maximize the value of both Divination, Astrodyne, and your cards. You play 1 card every odd minute, and then you stockpile up so you can use 3 cards alongside Divination. Alongside this, you only use Astrodyne during Divination, which sometimes means 2 Astrodynes in quick succession. This strategy is of course a lot more effective in a raid where you have more than 2 DPS to pass your cards to. To perform the card burst, you will also need light speed, so this means you can't start using light speed for any other reason without it causing issues for your burst later. As such, I recommend focusing on learning Astrologian for now, but simply present the option of card burst for those interested in the extra challenge. For attacking, replace Benefic with Gravity if there are 2 or more targets. Replace Combust with Gravity if there are 5 or more targets. For healing, remember to prioritize applying Aspected Benefic for large amounts of healing on your tank, or a single target. Aspected Helios is great for 2 or more targets. Essential Dignity should be used aggressively to keep your tank alive, and this is most effectively done by intentionally slacking on healing to let your tank drop low enough for Essential Dignity to maximize its value at 30% HP. Just Aspected Benefic while doing this risky strategy tends to be fine. Remember to use Lucid Dreaming often, and remember that Isuna can remove debuffs with a blue line over them. And keep in mind that Ascend should really only be used without Swiftcast in desperate situations. Situations where you will wipe if you don't. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me and my channel, you can make sure to let the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. And if you want to give even more support than that, you can also become a member of the channel like these wonderful people here. Fun fact, Divination is a simplification of a strategy that Astrologians used to use. They had an ability called Royal Road that sacrificed a card to enhance the effect of their next card. One of these enhancements was making the card raid-wide. The Balance was the card that specifically had the inherent effect of boosting the damage of targets affected, meaning that the setup of making the Balance raid-wide was effectively identical to Divination as we have it now.